Hello guys and welcome to Strawberry Inc. Today I will be covering a case about a mother and her child. Dee Dee Blanchard was a woman from Chack Bay, Louisiana, who was a native of the Golden Meadow area. She grew up with her parents and 4 siblings. During her childhood, Dee Dee often exhibited episodes of misconduct. When things didn't go her way, she would steal from her family. When she got older, Dee Dee started working as a nurse aide. In 1997, her mom, Emma Glisclair, unexpectedly died. The Blanchard family allegedly suspected Dee Dee of being involved in her mother's death by intentionally starving her. At 24 years old, she met a 17-year-old boy in her area named Rob Blanchard and started a relationship with him. Dee Dee shortly after became pregnant through Rod, and their newborn daughter was born. Doctors told them that the baby would be a girl. Dee Dee wanted to name her Gypsy because she loved that name, and Rod chose her middle name as Rose because he liked the musical band Guns N' Roses. The couple also agreed to have the baby take on her family's last name. The couple also agreed to have the baby take on her father's last name, which is common in most families in America. The couple married while Dee Dee was still pregnant, which caused her to change her last name and become Dee Dee Blanchard. However, they divorced before Dee Dee gave birth, because Rod got to know her more and came into the conclusion that she was the wrong person to be married to. On July 27, 1991, their daughter Gypsy Rose Blanchard was born. Dee Dee insisted that Rod return their relationship back together, but he resisted and refused to. At this point, Dee Dee kept Gypsy for herself due to her ex-husband Rod's young age. When Gypsy was 3 months old, her mother Dee Dee claimed that she had sleep apnea and took her to the doctors, then to the hospital. Tests were run on Gypsy, but showed no proof of the condition. Dee Dee would take Gypsy to the hospital and get tested multiple times, and have her stay there overnight. None of these tests indicated any sort of respiratory failure. Dee Dee then started claiming that her daughter's health was deteriorating, and suspected her from suffering from an unspecific chromosomal disorder. Dee Dee then claimed that Gypsy had muscular disorder, and made her start using a walker. When Gypsy was 7 years old, she was involved in a minor motorcycle accident with her grandfather, Claude Blanchard, which resulted in her knee being scraped. Her mother, Dee Dee, then got her a wheelchair and told her that she needed to use it from now on. Gypsy never even needed this wheelchair. Mother Dee Dee became aware of the Special Olympics organization, which rearranges sporting events across the United States and sometimes around the world, just like a missionary program. This organization hosts events targeting kids or adults with Down syndrome who normally don't get the chance to play sports with others, just so they are able to entertain themselves despite being unable to participate in traditional sports leagues. Dee Dee started taking Gypsy to these events in order to gain attention and collect donations. In 2001, Gypsy was 10 years old. However, Dee Dee faked her age, claiming that she was 8, in order to sign her up for an annual New Orleans Mardi Gras parade, which is a Christian event. Due to the attention Gypsy had gained from her mom displaying her as a disabled child, she was declared the queen of the parade, known as Queen of Crew, and as well got to be displayed during the parade, leading to more attention which benefited Dee Dee in her plan to raise funds. After Gypsy finished 2nd grade, her mother Dee Dee pulled her out of school and decided to homeschool her in order to keep her isolated. Around this time, Gypsy taught herself to read Harry Potter books and really enjoyed them. She was often in contact with her father Rod, but would barely get a chance to see him in person. Dee Dee moved in with her dad Claude and stepmother Laura. She brought Gypsy with her. This was around the time when Gypsy really started to see her mom as an abusive woman. Mainly because for years she had been given medication treatments and undergone procedures that she never needed. Her mother also faked all of the diseases she had been diagnosed with. Due to her mother having worked as a nurse, she could easily pick up medications and give them to Gypsy. At the Piter household, Dee Dee would cook for the family and allegedly poisoned her stepmother Laura's food with Roundup weed killer. Laura then developed chronic illness. Around this time, Dee Dee allegedly started depositing bad checks, stealing and committing debit card frauds. She was never arrested nor brought to justice for these crimes. The Piter family began to confront Dee Dee regarding the unnecessary treatments that she was performing on her daughter Gypsy, and suspected the involvement in her stepmother's health issues. Dee Dee then left Louisiana with Gypsy and moved back to the town of Slidell, which is around the New Orleans area where they first lived. After Dee Dee had gone from her family's home, her stepmother's health returned back to normal. Dee Dee would intentionally make her daughter Gypsy sick with medications, and was granted child support money that her ex-husband Rod had to pay. The supposed medical conditions of Gypsy also led to Dee Dee receiving public financial assistance. Around this time, Dee Dee started claiming that Gypsy had hearing and vision problems. She would take her to the Tulane Medical Center and Children's Hospital of New Orleans seeking to get her medical treatments. A muscle biopsy was performed on Gypsy, which found no proof of her having anything wrong with her bones. Dee Dee insisted that Gypsy did have medical issues, so due to her having worked as a nurse, treatments were performed on Gypsy anyways. She then told doctors that Gypsy was having seizures every few months and seizure medication was then prescribed to her. Dee Dee constantly took Gypsy to the emergency room for minor ailments. Multiple surgeries were performed on her. In August 2005, Hurricane Katrina swept through the area, leading to Dee Dee and Gypsy leaving their home and heading to a shelter designed for people with special needs. They stayed in this Covington, Louisiana shelter for weeks. A doctor who worked in the Ozark Mountains was called to help patients in the shelter and assisted Gypsy. He advised Dee Dee that they relocate to Missouri, where the medical specialists are. They agreed and were airlifted there a month later on a helicopter. Dee Dee then started renting a home in Aurora, Missouri. Gypsy's false conditions gained attention and led her to being honored by the Ole Foundation, which advocated for the rights of feeding tube recipients. They awarded her the 2007 Child of the Year Award. In 2008, the Habitat for Humanity Foundation acknowledged Gypsy and Dee Dee's situation and started a project for them. They built them a small house in Springfield, Missouri, where the pair would move in. The home contained a wheelchair ramp and hot tub. The story of Dee Dee and Gypsy fleeing Hurricane Katrina became viral in the media, leading to an outpouring of support towards them. Dee Dee would attend charity events in the area to raise money. She and Gypsy would often head to Louisiana and spent nights at the Ronald McDonald House. When Gypsy had a medical appointment, she and Dee Dee received free flights to Kansas City in order to get to the city's Children's Mercy Hospital. Through the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which is an organization aimed to support terminally ill children wanting to travel or meet a public figure on the last months of their life. Gypsy received free flights to Walt Disney World and free backstage passes to Miranda Lambert's concerts. Despite all of the money Dee Dee received through charity, Rod still had to pay his monthly child support of $1,200. Rod would as well send her gifts on holidays and occasionally do phone calls with her. When Gypsy turned 18, Dee Dee kept insisting that she was 14 in order to continue to receive child support money. Rod tried to have him and his second wife do trips to visit Gypsy. However, Dee Dee kept changing plans in order for Rod to not visit her. Dee Dee claimed to her neighbors that Gypsy's father was a drug addict, alcoholic, that paid no attention to her health issues and never sent her child support money. Dee Dee had part of Gypsy's teeth be removed and would regularly shave her head to have her look like a chemotherapy patient. She convinced Gypsy that the medication she was taking would make her hair fall out, so it was best to shave it off in advance. Gypsy would cover her head with wigs and hats. Whenever they left the house, Dee Dee would connect Gypsy to an oxygen tank and feeding tube. She was fed Pediasure, a children's nutrition supplement sold in liquid. Dee Dee would allegedly physically abuse Gypsy and hold her hand at all times when they were exposed to the public. Whenever Gypsy said something claiming that she was stable and not sick, Dee Dee would squeeze her hand tightly. When they got back home, she would strike her either with bare hands or a coat hanger. Gypsy's saliva glands were treated with Botox before doctor visits. Dee Dee would use topical anesthetic gums to numb her mouth. Tubes were implanted in Gypsy's ears to treat the myriad purported ear infections that Dee Dee claimed she had. After her front teeth were extracted, she would wear bridge dentures. A pediatric neurologist named Bernard Flasterstein became suspicious of Gypsy's supposed muscular dystrophy diagnosis after examining her. He ordered MRI scans and blood tests which found no issues with her health. He was confused on why Gypsy could not walk and brought this up to Dee Dee. Dr. Flasterstein contacted Gypsy's former New Orleans doctor and asked him about her tests. They informed him that the tests done in New Orleans had as well came back negative for any medical issues. Dee Dee then claimed that Gypsy was indeed diagnosed and tested positive for muscle dystrophy, but that the medical documents for that were destroyed after Hurricane Katrina flooded their home. Dr. Flasterstein suspected that Dee Dee was going through a period of Munchausen syndrome, which is the habit of constantly seeking medical assistance for themselves or their child for attention. After being informed about this suspicion, Dee Dee stopped taking Gypsy to this doctor. Dr. Flasterstein chose to not report the suspicion to Child Services because doctors chose him to treat the two with golden gloves, and that it was unlikely authorities would believe Dee Dee was abusing her child. Gypsy is known to have collected money by a certain name, which was Claudine Blanchard. In 2009, an anonymous caller informed the police that Dee Dee had been providing false information about her to agencies, such as different names and birth dates. This caller also claimed that Gypsy's health was better than what Dee Dee described. Officers confronted Dee Dee at her home and questioned her about the allegations. The officers performed a wellness check and believed Dee Dee because she claimed that she used false information in order to prevent her supposed abusive ex-husband, Rod Blanchard, from finding them. The officers also presumed Gypsy to be mentally disabled. This was because Dee Dee had allegedly been given sleeping medication to Gypsy to make her look more weak. Officers then left the scene and let them go. Dee Dee continued to forge birth certificates of Gypsy, claiming that her original one was destroyed due to Hurricane Katrina. However, Dee Dee kept a copy of Gypsy's original birth certificate. When Gypsy wondered what the certificate was for, Dee Dee told her that it was a misprint. Since 2001, Dee Dee had been taking Gypsy to science fiction and fantasy conventions. She would dress her up in costumes and push her around in her wheelchair. In 2011, Gypsy started using the internet and would sign up for a Christian dating website called Christian Dating for free. Through this website, she met a middle-aged man named Russ. Both agreed to meet up at the next science convention. Gypsy had explained to Russ how she wanted to run away from her mother and start a relationship with him. The day of the convention, Russ found Gypsy and would try to help her run away from her mother. He followed Dee Dee and Gypsy to their home and waited until midnight. Gypsy then ran away with Russ and headed over to his house. The next morning, Dee Dee called Gypsy and said she would call the police if she didn't return home. Gypsy then gave Dee Dee her location, leading to Dee Dee heading over to Russ's house to pick her up. This morning, Gypsy realized that she was actually 19 years old and not 15 years old like her mother claimed. When bringing this up to Dee Dee, Gypsy was again told by her that her being 19 was false information. When they got home, Dee Dee tied Gypsy to her bed with a dog leash and handcuffed her. She then smashed Gypsy's phone and computer with a hammer. She as well threatened to smash her fingers if she ever escaped again. Gypsy was tied to that bed for 2 weeks. Dee Dee claimed to her that she had filled out paperwork informing the police that she was mentally incompetent, and if she tried to go to them, they would not believe her. Once Gypsy was untied from the bed, she grabbed a BB gun and shot her mother 10 times to try to escape once again. Gypsy thought it was a real gun and was desperate to kill her mother to escape her abuse. In 2012, Dee Dee and Gypsy were caught stealing arts and crafts that were worth $21.53 from Hobby Lobby. They got the police called on them and were questioned about the suspected theft. The items had been hidden in Gypsy's wheelchair under her legs. Dee Dee told the officers that they had no intention to steal and that they had accidentally forgot to put the items back. In the same year, Gypsy became in contact with 23-year-old Nicholas Godejohn, whom she had met through the Christian dating site she used. Gypsy would stay up late at night while her mother was sleeping to use her computer and chat with him. Gypsy and Nicholas would start dating, continuing on their relationship for a few more years. Both would discuss getting married and having children. Gypsy even told these fiends to her 23-year-old neighbor, Aliyah Woodmansey, whom she got along with and would chat with all the time on Facebook. Gypsy had 5 separate Facebook accounts and would use them to flirt with Nicholas. Nicholas would often discuss explicit topics. Gypsy's neighbor Aliyah tried to talk her out of the relationship, believing that she was too young to have one that serious. In 2015, Gypsy and Nicholas planned to meet each other in person. Gypsy thought of having them meet up at a movie theater with her mother to instantly start a public relationship. Gypsy begged her mother to take her to watch Cinderella and convince her. At the movie theater, Nicholas met up with them. Gypsy led him to the stall of the women's bathroom, where they engaged in sexual activity. However, Gypsy has always claimed that it never worked out because Nicholas's private parts could not be erected. Nicholas stayed in the area and continued chatting with Gypsy online. Both had started planning to kill her mother, Dee Dee. Nicholas left Springfield but would shortly after return in June of that year. While Nicholas was heading back towards the area, Gypsy and her mother were at a doctor's appointment. When they got home, Nicholas waited for nighttime. Nighttime came and Dee Dee went to sleep. Nicholas arrived at the home and Gypsy let him in. Gypsy then gave Nicholas duct tape, elastic gloves, and a knife to kill her mother Dee Dee. Gypsy really did not want to hear her mother screaming in pain, so she hid under the bathroom sink and plugged her ears. Nicholas Godejohn stabbed Dee Dee 17 times in the back while she was asleep, killing her at the scene. Nicholas and Gypsy then engaged in multiple sexual contacts in her bedroom. They took $4,000 that Dee Dee had saved in her home and left to go to a nearby motel. They went to several stores and stayed in that motel for a few nights. Nicholas Godejohn mailed the equipment he used to kill Dee Dee back to his home in Wisconsin. The knife that had been used to kill her had been bought from Amazon. Both then took a bus to Wisconsin and fled the state of Missouri. Gypsy would now walk normally without a wheelchair and would wear a blonde wig because her hair was still shaved off. The couple then settled in Nicholas's Wisconsin home. Dee Dee's neighbors realized that she had stopped posting on Facebook and wondered why. They tried calling her but never got a response. This concerned them and led them to go check on her at the home where she and Gypsy lived. Dee Dee's car was parked in the driveway, and it was hard to see through the house's windows. The neighbors knocked on her front door, which was locked but nobody opened. They called 911 and requested the police's help. The Springfield Police Department were working with the FBI to investigate Dee Dee for alleged fraud and online scams for faking her daughter's medical conditions and using online fundraising websites as an outlet to trick people into donating money to her. They had a warrant to search Dee Dee's home, and it was a coincidence that her neighbors were as concerned as the police. Despite a fraud investigation occurring, the Springfield police allowed Dee Dee's neighbors to search the home as well. In the house was Gypsy's wheelchair sitting by itself. Police then searched the rooms and found Dee Dee Blanchard's dead body in her living room. Dee Dee's body was then transported to the Greene County Coroner's Office, where her death was ruled a homicide. A search started for Gypsy Rose because authorities were concerned for her health and safety. This was due to her not having her feeding tube, oxygen tank, wheelchair, or medications. There was a GoFundMe started to raise money for Dee Dee's funeral, which is believed to have been Gypsy's. No one from Dee Dee's family would pay for her funeral, so instead she was cremated and her ashes were flushed down the toilet of her father's house. Gypsy's neighbor, Aliyah Woodmansey, told police about the relationship that she had been having with her online boyfriend, Nicholas Godejohn. She showed them printouts that had been saved, which included Nicholas Godejohn's name. With information included in the printouts, the police contacted Facebook and asked them to send them Nicholas's IP address. The IP address sent to the police by Facebook showed that the account that Gypsy had been chatting with was from Big Bend, Wisconsin. Police for the state of Wisconsin went to the location of the IP address, which was the home of Nicholas Godejohn. They raided the home, capturing both Nicholas and Gypsy. They surrendered and were arrested without further incident. Through messages they had sent to each other, law enforcement believed that they were responsible for the murder of Dee Dee Blanchard. They were taken to the Big Bend Police Department station and then transferred to Waukesha County Jail, where they remained without bail. They were extradited and transported back to Missouri, where they got booked into the Greene County Jail, again without bail, and then were given a $1 million bond that they were never able to pay off. Both remained in jail while awaiting trial. Gypsy Rose was charged with second-degree murder. Nicholas Godejohn was charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. Both initially pleaded not guilty. However, Gypsy Rose took a plea deal and changed her plea to guilty in exchange for a shorter sentence. This plea deal did not require her to testify against Nicholas Godejohn. In my next episode, I will discuss more about the case of her boyfriend Nicholas Godejohn. Gypsy was appointed to defense attorney Michael Stanfield to represent her, and Nicholas was appointed to attorney Dwayne Perry. They were both prosecuted by attorney Dan Patterson, who chose to not seek the death penalty against them due to the case being too unusual. Missouri State Judge David Jones sentenced Gypsy to 10 years in prison, but gave her a chance for parole after she spent at least 8 years incarcerated. If released on parole, she would have to be on supervised release for 2 years. After sentencing, Gypsy was housed at the Women's Eastern Reception Diagnostic and Correctional Center in Vandalia, Missouri. In this facility, she was processed in order to be assigned to a state prison to serve her sentence. She was then transported to the Chillicothe Correctional Center, where she served her sentence. In September 2023, Gypsy Rose was granted parole and would be released on the 28th of December of that year. Once the 28th came, she was released. She is currently on supervised release and was ordered to leave the state of Missouri until the supervised release is over. Gypsy will be on this supervised release until December 2025. She currently lives in Louisiana. Those who knew Dee Dee and Gypsy were shocked because they never knew that these diseases were made up. After Dee Dee's body was discovered 4 days after her death, neighbors planned to have a ceremony held for her. Despite Dee Dee not having a funeral, friends and neighbors gathered in downtown Springfield for a candlelight vigil. Thank you for listening. Please share this podcast to someone you know who may be interested in true crime. Don't forget to follow the podcast and like this episode for more content. Till next time, goodbye.